My husband Ethan turned to me during our wedding reception at the Riverside Gardens in Charleston, South Carolina, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Babe, where's your grandmother's sapphire necklace? I thought you were going to wear it today." The question was innocent, asked loud enough that my entire family heard. I watched my mother's face drain of color. My father's hand froze halfway to his champagne glass. My brother Marcus actually dropped his fork. And in that moment, standing in my white dress surrounded by 200 guests, I realized my family had done something unforgivable with the necklace my late grandmother had left specifically to me in her will. Let me back up and explain how we got here. My name is Claire Montgomery. I'm 28 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had a relatively normal family. Not perfect, but functional. I was wrong. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, in a family that looked successful from the outside. My father, Robert Montgomery, owned a struggling commercial real estate business. My mother, Diane, maintained appearances as a socialite despite our actual finances being far more precarious than anyone knew. My older brother Marcus, 31, had bounced between jobs his entire adult life, always with some excuse for why nothing was ever his fault. Then there was me. The responsible one. The one with the steady job as a pediatric nurse at Savannah Memorial Hospital. The one who'd put herself through nursing school. The one who never asked for help and never caused problems. The one they could always count on to bail them out. Over the years, I'd loaned my parents over $40,000. Down payment help when they were behind on their mortgage. Car repairs. Medical bills. Emergency expenses that were never quite emergencies. Every time, they promised to pay me back. They never did. I'd helped Marcus more times than I could count. Rent when he was short. Job reference letters I had to beg supervisors to sign. Bail money once, after a DUI he swore was a misunderstanding. Probably $15,000 to him over the years. But I loved them. They were family. And family helps family, right? My grandmother Eleanor, my mother's mother, was different. She saw through the dysfunction. She'd built a successful career as a jewelry designer, creating custom pieces for wealthy clients throughout the South. She was independent, sharp, and didn't tolerate nonsense. She also loved me fiercely. I was her favorite grandchild, not because I was special, but because I reminded her of herself, someone who worked hard and didn't expect handouts. When I was 25, Grandma Eleanor was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. She fought for 18 months before passing away peacefully in hospice. I was with her when she died, holding her hand. A week after the funeral, her lawyer read the will. She'd left most of her estate, about $300,000, to be split between my mother and my Aunt Susan. But she'd left something specific to me, her jewelry collection, valued at approximately $180,000. The centerpiece was an Art Deco sapphire and diamond necklace she'd designed herself in the 1980s, worth about $75,000 alone. The will was explicit: my jewelry collection, in its entirety, goes to my granddaughter Claire Montgomery, to keep or sell as she sees fit. This is not to be considered part of the general estate and is not to be divided among other heirs. My mother's face had tightened when the lawyer read that section. But she'd hugged me afterward and said, "She always loved you so much. You should treasure those pieces." I'd stored the jewelry in a safety deposit box at Savannah National Bank, planning to wear select pieces on special occasions. The sapphire necklace was designated for my wedding day, whenever that happened. Then, 2 years after Grandma's death, I met Ethan Cole at a friend's barbecue. He was a civil engineer, kind and funny, with warm brown eyes and a laugh that made me feel safe. We dated for a year and a half before he proposed on the beach at Tybee Island at sunset. Planning the wedding was exciting. We set the date for October, booked the Riverside Gardens, hired vendors, sent invitations. I was happy. Genuinely happy. About 6 months before the wedding, Dad called with another emergency. The business was struggling, he was behind on payroll. Could I possibly loan them $20,000 just temporarily until a big deal closed? I said no. For the first time in my life, I said no. Claire, I'm in real trouble here. I could lose the business. Dad, I've loaned you over $40,000 in the past 10 years. I can't keep being your bank. I'm getting married. I need my savings. You're being selfish. After everything we've done for you. What have you done for me? I paid for my own education. My own car. My own apartment. I've been helping you for years and you've never paid me back once. He hung up on me. Mom called an hour later, crying about how I was abandoning the family in their time of need. Marcus sent a text calling me a heartless bitch. I held firm. And for the first time, I felt powerful instead of guilty. The wedding approached. 3 weeks before the ceremony, I went to the bank to retrieve the sapphire necklace. I wanted to have it cleaned professionally before the big day. I opened the safety deposit box. It was empty. Completely empty. Every piece of jewelry was gone. My heart stopped. I immediately spoke to the bank manager. We reviewed the access logs. 2 months earlier, someone had accessed the box using my key and ID. Except it wasn't me. I still had my key. I still had my ID. The security footage showed my mother walking into the bank, presenting identification and the key, and accessing my box. She'd walked out 20 minutes later with a large bag. My mother had stolen my grandmother's jewelry. She'd somehow duplicated my key and forged or used an old ID of mine to access the box. I sat in the bank manager's office, watching the security footage on repeat, and felt something inside me shatter. Not sadness. Rage. I called the police from the bank. Filed a theft report. Gave them the footage, the access logs, everything. Then I called my mother. Where is Grandma's jewelry? Silence. Then, Claire, we can explain. Where is it? We needed money. The business was going under. We were going to lose everything. So you stole from me? You stole the jewelry my grandmother left specifically to me in her will? We were going to tell you. We were going to pay you back. With what money? You've never paid me back for anything in your life. How much did you get for it? More silence. Robert sold most of it to a jewelry broker. We got $45,000. You sold $180,000 worth of jewelry for $45,000? And the sapphire necklace? We still have that. We couldn't get a good price for it, so we held on to it. Bring it to my apartment. Tonight. Or I'm pressing charges. Claire, you wouldn't. Try me. They showed up at my apartment 2 hours later. Dad handed me a velvet box without meeting my eyes. Inside was Grandma's sapphire necklace, safe and beautiful. But everything else was gone. The police are investigating this as theft, I said coldly. You stole my property using forged documents. That's multiple felonies. Claire, please, Mom begged. We're your parents. You can't send us to jail. You stole from me. You violated my trust. You sold jewelry my dead grandmother left me because you were too proud to declare bankruptcy like normal people. We'll pay you back. You can't pay me back. You sold irreplaceable pieces for a fraction of their value. You can never make this right. What do you want from us? Dad's voice was sharp now, defensive. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to know that I'm done being your ATM. And I want you to leave. They left. And I sat in my apartment with the sapphire necklace, the only piece they hadn't managed to sell, and cried for the grandmother who'd loved me enough to leave me something precious, and for the family who'd valued money more than respecting her wishes or my trust. I didn't tell Ethan right away. I was embarrassed, ashamed that my family had done something so terrible. But eventually, I told him everything. About the loans, the theft, the police report. You're pressing charges, he asked. I filed the report. I haven't decided if I'm following through with prosecution. What's holding you back? They're my parents. They're thieves who stole from their own daughter. He was right. But the guilt was overwhelming. The voice in my head saying good daughters don't send their parents to jail, family is supposed to forgive, this will destroy relationships forever. But another voice, Grandma Eleanor's voice, said, if they respected you, they wouldn't have stolen from you. Don't let guilt make you accept abuse. The police investigation continued. The DA's office got involved. My parents hired a lawyer who argued it was a misunderstanding, that I'd given them permission to access the box, that this was a family dispute, not a criminal matter. I had the security footage. I had my key that proved I hadn't given it to them. I had the bank's testimony that someone had duplicated the key and presented forged documents. The DA offered a plea deal. My parents would pay restitution for the value of the stolen jewelry, plead guilty to a reduced charge, and serve probation. No jail time if they complied with restitution terms. They took the deal. Because the alternative was trial and possible prison. And somehow, through all of this, they blamed me. I was the villain for not just letting it go. I was destroying the family over things. I was choosing jewelry over my parents. Marcus sent a lengthy text about how disappointed Grandma Eleanor would be in my behavior. I almost laughed. Grandma would have pressed charges faster than I did. The weeks leading up to the wedding were tense. Part of me wanted to uninvite my family. But another part, the part that still hoped for some kind of reconciliation, invited them anyway. Which brings us back to the wedding reception. Ethan's innocent question hung in the air. Where's your grandmother's sapphire necklace? Every eye at the family table turned to me. Mom looked like she might be sick. Dad was staring at his plate. Marcus had gone pale. Our guests were watching, curious about the family drama they could sense unfolding. I touched the simple pearl necklace I was wearing, a gift from Ethan's mother. Then I smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. That's an interesting story, actually, I said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. The necklace my grandmother left to me in her will was almost lost. My parents stole my grandmother's entire jewelry collection from my safety deposit box and sold most of it to a pawnbroker for a fraction of its value. Fortunately, the sapphire necklace was recovered during the police investigation. The silence was deafening. Guests' mouths fell open. Ethan's hand found mine under the table, squeezing supportively. We'd agreed beforehand that if the subject came up, I wouldn't lie. The necklace is currently being held as evidence in their theft case, I continued. They took a plea deal last month. Probation and restitution. So while I'd love to be wearing it today, it's sitting in an evidence locker at the police station. Mom stood up abruptly, chair scraping. Excuse me, she said, voice shaking, and practically ran toward the exit. Dad followed. Marcus sat frozen, looking like he wanted to disappear. Ethan's mother, Susan, who was sitting nearby, reached across and squeezed my shoulder. Good for you for telling the truth, she whispered. The reception continued. People approached me, some to express shock, others to quietly share their own stories of family financial abuse. It was like opening a door I hadn't known was there. So many people had been exploited by family and felt guilty about it. My parents and Marcus left early. They didn't say goodbye. Just slipped out during the cake cutting. I felt lighter without them there. Like I could finally breathe. The next morning, on our honeymoon in the Bahamas, I woke up to 17 text messages. Most from extended family members who'd heard about the wedding revelation secondhand. Aunt Susan, my mother's sister who I'd always liked, sent the longest message. Claire, I'm so sorry this happened. I suspected something was wrong when your mother suddenly had money to invest, but was evasive about the source. I wish I'd pressed harder. For what it's worth, your grandmother would be proud of you for standing up for yourself. She always said you had a backbone of steel. Don't let your parents make you feel guilty for their choices. You're not destroying the family. They did that when they stole from you. Love you, kiddo. Aunt Susan. I cried reading that. Because I'd felt so alone in this decision. And here was someone validating that I wasn't crazy, wasn't cruel, wasn't wrong. When we got back from our honeymoon, real life set in. The restitution payment started. My parents were required to pay me $2,500 monthly for the next 6 years to cover the value of the stolen jewelry. I knew I'd probably never see most of it, but the legal obligation existed. More importantly, I'd established boundaries. I wouldn't be loaning money anymore. I wouldn't be fixing their problems. I wouldn't be available as their emergency fund. 3 months after the wedding, Dad called. I almost didn't answer. Claire, we need to talk. About what? About this situation. This distance between us. Your mother is devastated. We're your parents. We made a mistake. You committed multiple felonies. You stole irreplaceable items my dead grandmother left me. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. We were desperate. You had options. Bankruptcy. Downsizing. Selling assets. You chose to steal from me instead. That tells me everything I need to know about how you value me. That's not fair. We love you. You love what I can do for you. There's a difference. And I'm done pretending they're the same thing. I hung up. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. 6 months after the wedding, the sapphire necklace was released from evidence. I picked it up from the police station, drove straight to my apartment, and put it on in front of the mirror. It was stunning. Art Deco elegance, sapphires and diamonds set in platinum, exactly as Grandma had designed it. I could picture her wearing it, could almost hear her voice telling me to stand tall and never let anyone make me feel small. I wore it to dinner that night. Ethan and I went to a nice restaurant downtown, and when the waiter complimented the necklace, I told him the whole story. About Grandma designing it. About the theft. About pressing charges. About choosing myself over family loyalty. Good for you, he said. My sister went through something similar with our parents. It takes courage to set boundaries. I was learning that everyone had stories like this. Family financial abuse was so common, and yet so rarely talked about because of shame and guilt. A year after the wedding, I started a blog called The Inheritance Project. I wrote about my experience with the jewelry theft, about family financial exploitation, about the guilt and shame that keeps people trapped in toxic dynamics. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of people reached out with their own stories. Parents who'd stolen from kids. Siblings who'd manipulated inheritance. Families who'd pressured members to give up opportunities to fund others' lifestyles. I wasn't alone. None of us were alone. We'd just been silent about it. My parents made about 6 months of restitution payments, then stopped. I could have taken them back to court for violating the plea agreement, but I decided it wasn't worth my energy. I'd gotten the necklace back. I'd established boundaries. The money didn't matter as much as the principle. Marcus reached out 2 years after the wedding. He wanted to apologize, he said. To rebuild our relationship. I met him for coffee, wary but willing to listen. I've been in therapy, he said. Working on a lot of stuff. And I realized I enabled Mom and Dad's behavior toward you. I benefited from you being the family ATM while criticizing you for not giving more. That was wrong. Yes, it was. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I see it now. I see how they used you. How I used you. And I'm sorry. It was the first real apology I'd ever gotten from any of them. It didn't fix everything, but it mattered. I appreciate you saying that, I said. I'm not sure what relationship we can have going forward, but I'm willing to see. We started slowly. Coffee every few months. Texts on birthdays. No money, no favors, no falling back into old patterns. Just 2 people trying to figure out if they could be siblings without all the dysfunction. My parents never apologized. They maintained they'd done nothing wrong, that I'd overreacted, that I'd destroyed the family over money. The cognitive dissonance was stunning. They'd stolen from me, but I was the villain. I stopped expecting anything different. Some people are incapable of accountability. And I'd spent too many years trying to earn love from people who only valued me for what I could provide. 3 years after the wedding, Ethan and I bought a house in Charleston. During the move, I found a box of old photos. One showed me at 8 years old, helping Grandma Eleanor in her jewelry studio. She was teaching me to polish stones, and I was looking up at her with complete adoration. I framed that photo and put it on my dresser, next to the velvet box that held the sapphire necklace. Every time I looked at it, I remembered that Grandma had loved me enough to leave me something precious. And that love, real love, doesn't come with conditions. Doesn't take without asking. Doesn't steal and then blame the victim. My name is Claire Montgomery Cole. I'm 31 years old. On my wedding day, my family turned pale when my husband asked about my grandmother's jewelry, because they'd stolen it and gotten caught. That moment of public exposure wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new one. A story where I valued myself enough to demand accountability. Where I set boundaries even when it made me the villain. Where I chose peace over family drama. The jewelry was never really about the jewelry. It was about respect. It was about honoring my grandmother's wishes. It was about refusing to let people treat me as less important than their comfort. I wear the sapphire necklace on special occasions now. Every time I put it on, I remember two things: my grandmother's love, and my own courage in refusing to let that love be disrespected. And that,